Give me a second. I think there's actually a point that you brought up. With Jeremiah and his decision to publicly escort Suzaku, and him being like, oh well, everything will be fine because I'm in my Sutherland or whatever, and my nightmare will take care of any of that shit. The reason why I can somewhat give that a pass, even though it was stupid, somewhat, is due to the fact that, like, I guess this also is a fault too, because it's never really explained how powerful nightmares really are, like varying levels. I mean, you can assume the you know, the bare bones ones that we always see is like cannon fodder, or like the standard ones, and then all the generals are given like really nice ones.
Flashy.
Yeah. What I was assuming from that is, like, it's already been proven that Jeremiah is arrogant. He's dumb, yes, but stupidity and arrogance go hand in hand. So even if he was slightly dumb and he had a lot of arrogance, that arrogance would enhance his stupidity. And the reason why I said I possibly give it a pass is we don't necessarily know how powerful that Sutherland nightmare frame was, because it might be one of those things where it's like, yeah, these are terrorists, but like they all have like standard nightmares and shit, and like I'm a general, so you know, I would assume you're a general, you have combat experience, you're in this badass nightmare. It's pretty much like this. I'm gonna escort this guy, but we've got a fucking badass tank, and these terrorists just have fucking, I don't know, like F-150s with machine guns on them. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, they pose a threat, but I pose a bigger threat. And
I think it's what you're saying, you know, it's like, I feel like throughout the show, I don't think, like, it could be stupidity, but I think it's more of people underestimate Lelouch. Like, it's like, you know, you're going up against a small terrorist cell. Like, I see it as, if I look at it through the eyes of the Britannians, it's the same situation that the British had against the US, right? It's like we're going against a bunch of farmers in guerrilla, like, that's what they do. Exactly. The entire time, and so I can relate, and some of the things you bring up about the tactics that they do is like, I can accept that that's why they did it, because when you're an overwhelming force and you have conquered most of the world, you get cocky, and when you get cocky, you're like, yo, we have the best tech, we got the best soldiers, we have uniformity, we have tactics, we have strategy, we have
and we've already taken over your area, and we've been oppressing you. Yeah,
it's like, what? So we have to deal with at most 15 to 20 terrorists, and the problem is that they use guerrilla tactics, and obviously, like, we've seen time and through history, many powerhouses who have better technology and stuff lose. U.S. big example. They've lost conflicts because they're in. That's the biggest thing. Is like, I feel like they're out of their element no matter what, because they're in Japan. They're not in Britannia. If they were fighting this in Britannia, I think Lelouch would have got his ass handed to him. But since they were fighting in pretty much 11, they call 11. Since they were fighting in their territory, like, Lelouch and the rest of the terrorists, they knew it like the back of their hands. Like, that's how they were able to slip through a lot of their shit. That's why I think, like, a lot of the things that you may consider cop-outs or just handing in the story, may be, in a logical sense, could be done just for the fact that they're outside of their element and they're underestimating who this person is or what they are. Because it seems like every person comes up, it's like, oh, I'm better than that last person. Some of them are legit dumbasses. Like, they state that, like, some of the royalty is just like,
they just
got that position because of nepotism. Like, they are like that. The first guy is the biggest example. The first guy that Lelouch kills, he's the biggest example of that. Like, he just got the position. He thinks he's hot shit, but he's.
And I mean,
he don't got no experience. He's trash.
And to be honest, to even reinforce that point a little bit more, how many times do we see in modern day society? I mean, come on, our commander in chief is fucking retarded. Like, so how many times do we see in modern society people in high places having no fucking brains? If anything, I feel like that's more believable than. I feel like it's perfectly believable that you have somebody like Valletta who is smarter than her superior officers, because that's usually how it is. People in high places getting that way, not necessarily because of them being naturally talented or good at what they do, but just being handed a pass. And if Britannia is anything like England, I mean, these things just stack up to make more and more sense. Like, that's why I have mixed feelings, because I understand where you're coming from with a lot of things, but it's like, this can also be explained with X, Y, and Z. Not everything. definitely not everything, but certain things. Like I'll give you another example that I felt like you were nitpicking on. With them trying to showcase Lelouch is a genius with the chess match, and I will acknowledge that you did say these are not story breaking or plot breaking things, but I will say I still feel like that's nitpicking, because you could be a savant and be a genius in chess and be retarded, period. So I just don't feel like chess is necessarily a natural way of gauging intelligence. It's a way of gauging strategy, of course. If we go to Hunter x Hunter and think about how the king would use board games like that to showcase his superior fighting strategy, that makes sense. Like I feel like
to introduce the character, like that's why it was used in Hunter. Like the idea of board games was to show like his intelligence growing, and I think like in like I do agree that sometimes like it seems like just the way that they did the setting, the framing of like just the actions by which he did, like, oh wow, I just beat you, like da 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 da. But I feel like at some points it doesn't need to be explained. It's just that the point needs to be made that hey, it's not that they have to, because I gotta look at it like this. I think the time it would have taken them to explain why he beat him and what moves he did exactly, that's airtime. You're wasting
right,
airtime.
exactly. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, yeah.
The whole concept of the entire show is like it's not about the chess game. Like the chess is like it's a. But
also, this is where I disagree with you. I agree with you and simultaneously disagree with you, Ethos, due to the fact that they chose not to spend time animating how he beat him in chess, but they choose to spend time animating a lot of dumb shit that happens at the school that doesn't really need to happen.
I agree with that.
So
I agree with that.
It's simultaneously. It's just bad. It's bad animation choices.
I will say that's the weakest parts of Code Geass is whenever they have scenes in the school, I think those are the weakest moments. I think the best moments are the battlefield, are the actual fights and stuff like that. Like those I enjoy the most. But I agree, the downtime they put in Code Geass is by far its weakest, in my opinion, the weakest link of the entire show. Like that stuff is like it's filler to my mind. A lot of it, like all his friends in the classes and stuff like that, except for me outside of Shirley because she actually has plot relevance. But all the rest of them, like it's just throwaway. It's just stupid stuff. Like I understand they used it in the beginning to like help him like test to see how much he could use his power and shit like that. That was fine. But the whole like having them always go back and having them somehow stay connected with Lelouch, it's just annoying.
Right.
But yeah, I agree with DX on that on those areas. But just to get progress, I guess DX, I guess the main thing I want to ask you is this is my biggest issue with the whole thing. And it could just be a different mindset thing. This is why I don't dismiss it as like, oh, DX is just this way. Do you feel that because we're talking about anime, and just from a fundamental level, and anime is fiction, do you feel that maybe perhaps you associate to that how do I describe it? That anime has to be to the point, it has to be grounded in reality, even if it's like, so Code Geass is obviously from Rent, like it's in a sci-fi, not in a real like sci-fi setting, futuristic, off the bat. It's a fantasy power trip in a nutshell. Do you feel like even though these things are not in a real, like I can understand like if in a live action, right? And some people do the stupid shit that they do, it's definitely more critical because you're in a live modern setting. But do you feel that even with anime, regardless of like let's say like Ava or like Geass or whatever anime it is, like they still like, do you feel like no matter what, even if it is in this fantasy setting, it still needs to follow a realistic, grounded, I guess, logical set? Or do you feel like, and I mean this not as parodies, because parodies like Kill la Kill and all those other ones, like they can get away with the outlandish shit because they obviously know they're being a parody. Like One Punch Man, they know they're being a parody of the tropes and shit. But like the ones that like you say, Code Geass, they take themselves seriously. Do you think just because they take themselves seriously, even though they're fictional, that's grounds for saying that they should still be grounded in like with reality rules and just common sense? Or do you think that it just depends in your opinion? Like it could be a hit and miss for you.
DX, the answer.
All right, yeah. All right, I've got a good answer for this. Like I said in the video, all stories, all character actions, all emotions, all stories within works are derived from our perspective of life. So I also think that most critique is derived from our perspective of life. If there's generally a thing or a plot hole or a character acts like an idiot, it's generally, we find problems with it generally because that's not how
it would work in real life.
Yeah, that's not how a human would behave, and that's what a lot of people forget is that these characters are human. They're not an alien species where our sense of logic doesn't apply. So when you have a work like Code Geass, which is trying to showcase people, in this case, ranging from teenager to adult, it's just, that's saying it's bad is juvenile. It's just very, very terrible, for lack of better words.
I was gonna say nonsensical. I feel like would be.
Well, yeah, it is nonsensical to have these characters, like, to try to push off the idea that these characters could be this stupid, or that certain characters would behave the way they do. And is it grounded in real life?